Introducing percent. Learning goal. I can describe ratios that compare numbers to 100 as percentages and fractions. Suppose we introduce the totally fake statistic that 3 million Canadians like licorice, and we also tell you that 1 million Norwegians also like licorice. If I asked you who likes licorice more, Canadians or Norwegians, the natural reaction would be to say, well, clearly there are 3 million Canadians who like licorice. That's more than the 1 million Norwegians, so clearly Canadians like licorice more than Norwegians. However, what this totally fake statistic doesn't take into account is the number of Canadians and the number of Norwegians. So there are approximately 35 million Canadians. If there are 35 million Canadians, that means 3 out of 35 million Canadians like licorice, and 1 out of their approximately 5 million Norwegians like licorice. If we do the division and divide 3 by 35, we get 0.0857. And for the Norwegians, if we divide 1 by 5, we're going to get 0.2. If we convert both of those now into percentages, we move the decimal place 2 positions, so this is 8.57%, and the Norwegians are 20%. When you look at it as a percentage basis, this means we've got approximately 8 to 9 out of every 100 Canadians who like licorice. And the Norwegians, there are 20 out of every 100 Norwegians who like licorice. So when you look at it as a percentage, 8 to 9 out of 100 is much fewer than 20 out of 100. So on a percentage basis, Norwegians like licorice a lot more than Canadians. Remember, this is a totally fake statistic. For the moment, let's assume that there are only 100 people in the world. So we're using, in this case, 100 people to represent the density of population in the world. So in the Americas, North and South America, there are 14 people. In Africa, there would be 16 people. In Europe, there are 10 people. And in Asia and South Pacific, there would be 60 people. We're asked to write each number above as a part-to-whole ratio with the second term of 100. So in the case of the Americas, that is 14 to 100. Africa is 16 to 100. Europe is 10 to 100. And Asia South Pacific is 60 to 100. Converting those to percentages, 14 out of 100 is 14%. 16%. 16 out of 100 is 16%, 10 out of 100 is 10%, and 60 out of 100 is 60%. Part D is then asking us to express each percentage as a fraction with a denominator of 100. So that's 14 out of 100, and 16 out of 100, 10 out of 100, and 60 out of 100. And then we can, of course, for part E, we can take each of those down to some other equivalent fraction. For 14 out of 100, if we divide the top and bottom both by 2, we end up with 7 out of 50. 16 out of 100, we can actually divide the top and bottom both by 4, and we get 4 out of 25. 10 out of 100, we can reduce down to 1 out of 10. And 60 out of 100, we can reduce down to 6 out of 10, but we can go further to 3 out of 5. So let's think about our class. In our class, we have 19 students. 7 are in grade 5, and 12 are in grade 6. Now, imagine we had a class of 100 students, but the ratio was the same. Approximately how many students would be in each group now? In order to figure that out, we're going to say we've got 7 grade 5s out of 19, and we've got 12 grade 6s out of 19. 7 divided by 19 is approximately 37%, and 12 out of 19 is approximately 63%. So if we wanted to think about how many students out of 100 we would have, that would mean we would have 37 out of 100 grade 5s, and 63 out of 100 would be grade 6. Lesson summary. A percentage is a way to write a part-to-whole ratio out of 100. For example, suppose there are 26 cats and 74 dogs in a group at a pet show. Part-to-whole ratios for cats and dogs in the group are 26 to 100 and 74 to 100. The group is 26% cats and 74% dogs. You can show percents on a 10 by 10 grid. For example, here we can see this area represents 74% dogs, while the blue area represents 26% cats. A percent can be written as a fraction with a denominator of 100, or as a simpler equivalent fraction. For example, 10% is 10 out of 100, or 1/10. 25% is 25 out of 100, or 1/4. 75% is 75 out of 100, or 3/4. 20% is 20 out of 100, or 1 out of 5. And 50% is 50 over 100, or 1 out of 2, or 1/2. Models like these show how percents and fractions relate. 100% is equal to 1, where the whole square is shaded in. 50% shows that only half of the 10 by 10 grid is shaded in. 25% shows 1/4 of the 10 by 10 grid shaded in. 3/4, 75%, shows 3/4 of the grid, and 10% shows 1 in 10, and 20% shows 2 out of 10. So you get the idea of how you can visualize it on a 10 by 10 grid. Estimating a percent as a simpler fraction can make it easier to understand. For example, the dog and cat model above shows that 74%, or about 3/4 of the group, is dogs, and 26%, or about 1/4, is cats. So by simplifying to 3/4 and 1/4, that's a little easier to think about and to understand than 74% and 26%. Key terms. Equivalent fractions are fractions that name the same part of a whole. For example, 2/3 and 4/6 are equivalent fractions. Part-to-whole ratio is a ratio that represents a relationship between one part of a whole to the whole. For example, if there are 5 adults and 3 children in a group of 8, the part-to-whole ratio of children to the group is 3 to 8, or 3:8. Percent. Percent is a special part-to-whole ratio that compares a number to 100. For example, 80% is 80 out of 100, or 80 divided by 100, or 80 to 100. Your turn.